Yo, what up? Sky and Lucas back with you for another episode of the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Podcast and YouTube page. If you're listening to the podcast, you haven't checked us out on YouTube yet, please do that. YouTube.com/the Candlestick Kids. And if you're on the YouTube page, go check us out wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Lucas, what's up, man? How we doing?
I'm good today. We are joined by my clothes rack, limited space in the apartment, so we got some viewers in the back, but we're good today.
Hey, man, you got that life, whatever. We're getting it done. That's all that matters.
Exactly.
Right on, y'all. Well, the day you're listening to this is actually my birthday. So, shouts out to all the February 18th birthday folks. We are diving into the wide receiver free agents. If you haven't listened to the rest of our series yet, we had the quarterbacks and the running backs last week on Tuesday and Thursday. Make sure you check those out. And we're going to have the tight ends coming up on Thursday as well. And what we're doing here is we're just running down all the free agents, fantasy relevant free agents, I should say, at the wide receiver position on this episode. And next episode, we will be doing the tight ends as well. Without any further ado, man, let's jump right into it. We've got Amari Cooper. He's going to be really the tops of all of the wide receiver free agents on most boards this offseason. However, Jerry Jones would be a fool to let him go, but there is a chance that he could technically leave, so let's just run through it just in case. Cooper set career highs in receiving yards and touchdowns and was just 5 receptions shy of his career high there in catches as well. And since coming over to Dallas from Oakland midway through 2018, Cooper has been a beast when healthy. That's the key there. He's got a great rapport with Dak Prescott already, who's about to get paid himself. And the Cowboys are throwing much more with OC Kellen Moore, former Boise State quarterback, of course, in charge of the play calling. They finally fired Jason Garrett, who is now with the Giants, and they have hired similar head coach, old school style Mike McCarthy, former Green Bay head coach, of course. It'll be interesting to see if Moore is able to take the reins still with the play calling, or if Mike McCarthy is able, to kind of sink his teeth into that, which hopefully he doesn't. We mentioned on a previous podcast. Either way, Amari Cooper is a special talent, still just 26 years old when the season starts, and he'll be a second, third round pick in fantasy and in dynasty, probably even earlier than that. So I'm all over Amari Cooper. I think it's highly unlikely he leaves Dallas, but hypothetically, let's just cover it really quick. 79 receptions, 1,189 yards, and 8 touchdowns last season. What do you think's going on with Amari Cooper?
Well, I'm going to come out and say he's a beast. He's an overall talent. However, if you listen to the podcast this past season, I never really was on board. Just the way I play, I don't like buying into injuries when obviously they're unpredictable. Anyone can get injured, but obviously there's tendencies with players. And he was kind of boom or bust, not as much as other big-name guys. But the Cowboys are sitting right around $73 million in cap space. If I had to predict how much Dak's going to get paid, I think I would set it at about $35 million. There's obviously that'll go into it than just like subtracting 73 minus 35. But I'm thinking he's going to get right around 35. There's no way they let Dak walk. We mentioned that on 2 episodes ago. We both agree he returns. They have a decision to make. They got Byron Jones, Amari Cooper, and Blake Jarwin's restricted free agent, but they're going to need a tight end because Jace Witten's also a free agent. So they kind of have to choose from one of them to sort of lock up for the long term for the rest of their career. And I wish we knew more at the time because there really hasn't been anything besides just the Dak talk. So I think they might tag him just because he does get injured quite a bit. He hasn't been dominant for a whole season with them type thing. They might be able to kind of play the money a little bit on him, but ultimately I think since he is the big name receiver in this class, I think he walks.
Wow.
To where that is, I don't know because I don't know what teams are going to choose him over the rookie receivers. Teams that need a true alpha, big dog receiver, Colts. The Niners do, but I don't think they want to. It's just the way Shanahan runs his offense. He has Kittle and Debo, and he'll just work in little guys here and there. He doesn't need a big name receiver. The Eagles need one. However, I don't think he signs in conference. There's
in conference or in division?
In division, in conference. Patriots kind of need one. There's a lot of teams that could use one truly. I think the team that would make the most sense is the Raiders, but he's not going to go back there by any means. So if I had to pick one spot, I think the Colts. I think this year is the year they'll spend their cap space, like we've kind of highlighted in past episodes. I think I predicted Derrick Henry for them if I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think the Colts would make the most sense, pairing him with Ty for the last 3 years of T.Y.'s career. I don't know, 2-3 years of T.Y.'s career, maybe getting a quarterback in there and trying to push for the playoffs. But where do you think ultimately we're not to make the most sense, but
Yeah, honestly, I don't think he leaves Dallas at all. If I was
mhm,
going to say that he did and then I had to predict where he was going to go, I think the 49ers make sense. They just need a big alpha receiver, although you're right. They do have some young bucks. They got your boy E. Sanders. They got Debo, who came on strong. They also have Pettis, who just completely disappeared this year. He should be
yep.
back healthy. They have Jalen Hurd as well, who's kind of a
Mhm.
nice, huge body, but he's also kind of a utility guy elsewhere. Kittle, of course, and some other options. Kendrick Bourne came on. Niners are pretty set. I don't know if they need to spend that money
Yeah.
in that spot. Another couple names here: the Bills, the Cardinals, the Jaguars, and the Jets. We're going to talk about Robbie Anderson in a bit, but he could leave town. Amari Cooper could potentially fill in there for Sam Darnold. I think that'd be a good match there. Eagles, I am with you. They desperately need a big dog
Yeah.
receiver, but I don't see them trading in division either. I think that's a good call on your part. The Bills, I think, could definitely use some help. All of their receivers are under 6 feet, so that would help a little bit. And then the Jags have a plethora of receivers, so I don't know that they go out and get Amari Cooper,
Yeah.
but they
They don't
definitely
have the
don't have
money.
– they don't have the money, and they haven't had someone really step up. I think the Cardinals could be interesting too if you were to go somewhere
Yeah.
else. The Patriots are always in there. They have no help at wide receiver, at least, polished outside of Julian Edelman, who's getting old, and we know that he is kind of a one-trick pony a little bit. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens if Amari were to leave. Ultimately, though, I just don't think he does. So I think this conversation is a conversation piece because I think he's the biggest name in wide receiver free agency
Yeah.
this season. However, I just don't. I think it's probably going to be for naught in a couple of weeks when
Yeah.
free agency really kicks off.
It'll be, I don't know. It's tough because he's so good, but he hasn't done anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's so good. We've seen how good he is, but he hasn't been able to piece that together and really make this like a big, huge market for him. Because teams like the Cardinals, I thought about that the other day. That makes huge sense. But why would they not pass on CeeDee Lamb at pick 8? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, this, when you say a team, you see so many factors as to why he wouldn't, where normally it's like, oh, they need a receiver. They're going to go after him. And this year, with how deep the class is, it kind of makes it interesting because who knows, maybe all these guys signed to the receiver needy teams and then the teams that won't draft a receiver in the draft. There's a lot of implications for sure on it. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't know if I want him to leave, but I think it might be better for him in the long term. But I don't know. I could see a little Devontae Adams-esque player with Mike McCarthy, which would be kind of cool in the red zone, but it'll be interesting.
I totally agree, man. I think it's somebody that would potentially get peppered. Another team I just kind of thought about that would be nasty, which they wouldn't do, but the Packers could use some help
They
on the other
could
side of.
get him like a
Uh,
4-year deal. I mean, they could.
oh man, that could be nasty. But all right, we'll see what happens. Ultimately, I think Amari stays. What do you think happens ultimately with Amari Cooper?
If I had to like lay a bet or lay money, like staking my claim, I think he's gonna leave just because I think the Cowboys. I don't know. I know Jerry Jones makes the decisions, but there's so many other voices in there that are going to tell him to save some cap. I think they can't just. I mean, you saw what they did. They invested it all, and they got 8 wins. Now they're stuck in this position. I don't think he's going to dig deeper in that hole. So I'm going to go with the Colts. I think they spend the money this year. They've obviously been saving it for a reason. And if you listen to our quarterbacks episode tomorrow for rookies, I've been finding a new destination for one of those quarterbacks. So we'll see what the Colts can do.
I think the Colts would be a great fit too, depending on their quarterback situation. Of course, there's many moving parts. Jacoby Brissett, maybe Phillip Rivers, maybe Jameis Winston, a rookie, whatever. There's a lot of different options there for Indianapolis, and that could work out. I love Mike Gallup. We're not going to get into Michael Gallup right now. I already love him anyway. If Amari Cooper were to leave somehow, Michael Gallup
Could be
shoots
awesome.
way up my rankings. All right, let's move on here. Another tier 1 receiver, A.J. Green, of course. He did not play in 2019. He had a mirage of lower body injuries and setbacks, foot, ankle, hamstring. He's been dealing with a couple the last few years. Every season he's played 16. He's been a top 10 receiver in the NFL. Dude's a beast, of course. Green missed half of 2018 and all of 2019 with foot and ankle injuries, as well as a lingering hamstring issue. He's been an absolute stud when healthy for his entire career in Cincinnati, reaching 7 Pro Bowls in 9 seasons. However, those injuries have caught up to him as of late the last couple of years, missing 23 of a possible 32 games.
Crazy.
Doing reverse math there, he's only played 9 games in that period. In 2017, his last full season, A.J. Green had 75 catches, 1,078 yards, and 8 touchdowns with average Andy Dalton at his quarterback. the Bengals have the first pick of the 2020 NFL Draft and are almost certainly going to take Heisman Trophy winner Joe Burrow, also the national champion LSU quarterback. If they do, I think, which they should, A.J. Green would be a perfect seasoned vet to help Burrow with the big target down in the red zone and help him down the field in that air raid offense with Zach Taylor that we didn't quite see yet last year. That said, Taylor has already expressed that signing Green is a priority for the Bengals this offseason, but, he could potentially get a trade request for somebody else. He could release him, try to get some of that cap open. If he does leave, like Amari Cooper, plenty of teams will be looking for him. He's an all-pro. He's perennial Pro Bowler, as I mentioned, potentially still in his prime at only 32, which isn't that old for receivers. Wherever AJ Green lands, you could sign me up. He's probably a 4th or 5th round pick with the injury concerns for fantasy owners, especially those that got burned by him last year. I certainly did. I'll take the risk, though, on the potential upside. And, again, I got him last year with the preseason. I got him like the 7th and 8th round in a couple leagues. Of course, he didn't play, and that was a hole in my roster. However, if he falls again to 5th, 6th, 7th round because people aren't sure, or if he leaves, whatever, and you get that kind of value again, still worth the risk for me because he is a top 10 receiver when healthy. So I love A.J. Green. I do think he leaves. I'll go over my picks in a little bit, but I'll let you speak on him real quick. A.J. Green is one of my favorite receivers in the NFL, period. What do you think happens with him in 2020?
Yeah, so kind of like Amari Cooper, I think 2 things with him. I think one, because he is older and there's more set in stone injury concerns, the prediction or outlook for him is easier, as much kind of weird as that seems. It's kind of easier to think what team might go get him. So like you mentioned, it's pretty set in stone. They're getting Joe Burrow. As much as I don't know if that's the right pick, we're not going to get into that. I think that's what they need to do. They need to get Joe Burrow. And if A.J. Green does not want to return to Joe Burrow with Zach Taylor, they're going to be losing and throwing the ball. The only other 2 teams I could see him going to are, Aaron Rodgers to the Packers or Tom Brady, wherever that may be in New England, or we'll say the Raiders, because that's kind of came up. I think either one of those would be a perfect fit for him. I think with that, if he were to, say, get a $10 million offer from the Patriots, I don't think the Bengals would match it. I think they would just let him go because they have so many more holes to fix. Because they could easily run with John Ross, Auden Tate, and Tyler Boyd, and Joe Mixon. So I think they're not necessarily desperate to get him back, but I think it's definitely it would be huge for Joe Burrow. I don't know if I had to pick. I'm gonna go Pats or Packers or Packers or Brady. We'll just put Tom Brady wherever he's at, Raiders or Patriots. I just think that he's gonna get. He might even get the higher contract out of Cooper and him just because it's going to be a shorter deal, made more money guaranteed up front. But I really hope he's able to put together a season or maybe a final 2 seasons because I think he's earned it for sure. Like we said, injuries are unpredictable, and it just was an unfortunate season for him. The continuous A.J. Green's coming back week 4, he's coming back week 8, all that stuff just kind of, I don't know, it kind of hurt his reputation, I think, and made people realize or forget how good he actually is. So I hope for his sake and fantasy sake that he can play a full season next year, 2 years, 3 years, wherever that may be.
Yeah, I totally agree. Earlier on in the free agency, I thought it was a lock that he would stay in Cincinnati. He's been a lifer there so far. I think he would be great for or whoever the new quarterback is, or maybe they go elsewhere with the Bengals. We never know with the draft technically, but maybe Andy stays there, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, though, I think there's too many other options for him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's at the end of his career by any means, unless the injuries take over. Age-wise, I think he'd be just fine. But I do think the Patriots, the 49ers, the Raiders, as you mentioned, getting Brady and A.J. Green I don't think is out of the realm of possibility with them moving to Vegas and wanting to make a splash. Of course, they tried the Antonio Brown experiment last year, both of them actually, the Patriots and the Raiders. We all know how that ended up. But I think nonetheless, they both need a big-time receiver. I think you're right and hit the nail on the head that I think A.J. Green also makes more money in his contract than Amari Cooper, but Amari Cooper should get a longer-term deal. So I think that's kind of an average thing. So that being said, I think he does leave. I think the Patriots is a great fit, but him going to the Raiders with Tom Brady I think also makes sense. But again, man, I think the Niners would be an awesome fit too, with him being a seasoned veteran, 10 years older than the rest of those guys outside of Emmanuel Sanders. I think he would be a good fit. Ultimately, I just think he adds to a contending team right away that needs to fill that roster spot.
Yep.
And I really just hope that he gets a chance because he should be on better teams, and the Bengals just haven't been. I think they will be moving forward because they got some promise younger players, but I hope AJ Green moves on. There's a couple other teams, Redskins, Ravens could use receivers as well. But again, I think the Patriots, Raiders, and 49ers would be front runners for me.
Yeah, he bullies corners whenever he plays. Like the talent's there, everything's there, and like you said, if you can get him in the 7th round next year, maybe. I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen unless he maybe gets injured again. But I think even the 3rd round's a steal because he's locked and loaded. If you go RB receiver, he's locked in 1,000 yards, 8+ touchdowns, no matter what team he's playing on, just because of the usage by far. So, yeah, I agree. I think we'll see how it comes, free agency and the draft for whatever team he falls on, and kind of how that projects out for the season. But
totally, man. We just had a our team, which we'll get into later on. I won't disclose any of the information about it yet, but our team just had an in-house mock draft. Our first of the season, just trying to see where people fall and stuff. And in the first 3 rounds, AJ Green wasn't chosen. So there's definitely, I think he's going to fall to the 4th or 5th. Like I said, last year we were having a similar conversation before he got re-injured. And I think I got him in the 7th or the 8th.
It makes sense though. I wasn't drafting him anywhere just because, obviously, like I said, I don't like drafting injury-prone receivers that early. But if you think about it, you draft him in hits. You know how many leagues you're gonna win. How many? You know what I'm saying? It's just you gotta take a chance every once in a while, and that's a huge hit for that 1 year.
100% agree. And you got to think too when you're doing drafts. You think about where AJ Green's going to fall. Say he falls the 6th round. What are the other 6th round receivers that you're going to get there?
Yeah, exactly.
They all have question marks. So why not take the guy who could be, top 10 should he hit his stride? So I'm with you there. Let's move on. And we have, your boy here, Emmanuel Sanders, of course, come up a little bit short. Hey, I'll get into Jimmy's throw here in just a second. But Emmanuel Sanders last year for the 49ers, of course, 66 receptions overall with the Broncos and the 49ers, 66 receptions, 869 yards, 5 touchdowns. He will be 33 when the season starts. So he and AJ Green, similar age there. Sanders shocked everyone except for Lucas probably with a bounce back off that torn Achilles suffered in 2018. A lot of people thought his career was over, and he came back and had a stellar season for the 49ers. He was traded from Denver to the Niners midseason and helped the Niners get to the Super Bowl. His numbers aren't massive, but considering his bounce back from a potentially career-ending injury, the fact was that the 49ers were a run-first team, and Sanders' 2019 campaign was quite impressive, all said and done. He still has gas in the tank and would only improve with the full season of Shanahan's offense. I still think he stays in San Francisco ultimately, as they do need a number 1 receiver if it's not going to be an Amari Cooper and AJ Green. And Deebo Samuel and George Kittle will definitely be the main attention getters, of course, from the defense. And I think that can only help out Emmanuel Sanders, who should be the top option there. He could play anywhere on the field, so I think he'll definitely have a job wherever he goes. And if it wasn't for Jimmy G's overthrow of 5 yards, he catches a walk-in touchdown and the Niners win the Super Bowl. So I think Emmanuel Sanders definitely has plenty left in the tank. I do think he stays with the 49ers, but again, we bring up the same teams. The Patriots could use him right away, the Raiders. There's a couple other options there, but ultimately I think they keep Emmanuel Sanders in San Francisco.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head with the just overall game. He's really just – not that he has to put up numbers, but just thinking your overall wide receiver 2 is Emmanuel Sanders versus some rookie you just drafted. I think that's just a huge boost for the team in general. As much as I want him to come back to the Broncos, which I don't think is out of the possibility, if they draft a receiver at 15, maybe be like, hey, will you come back for 2 years? We can see what we can do type thing. But I think he does return to the Niners. I follow him on Twitter, but obviously don't learn much there. But I would have to think he mentored that receiver group pretty well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would think. And then if you give him a whole offseason to mentor, Debo, Jalen Hurd, who I think is not just as good as Debo, but can be just as useful as Debo. Pettis is a beast. I don't even know what happened last year. And
he's hurt.
Yeah, even Kittle, like even mentoring Kittle just to like become that next mentor. I think Kittle's already there, but you could just give him some more advice. Obviously, Sanders has the resume of what every NFL player kind of wants, so I think he definitely has it all. I think Sanders, I think we will know early kind of where he's going. I just don't think he's going to mess around with it. I think he kind of is going to have that in place before because he is old. He's definitely not going to be playing much longer. He'll still be on my wall though, no matter when he retires or not. He still never tweeted back at me, but we won't talk about that. I think Niners, but I would love a Broncos reunion, even though I think we're way behind the Niners in terms of a Super Bowl ready team right now. But if you'd want to stay for 3 years, maybe by then we'd be able to take that next step in the final season.
I dig it. I do think he stays, but again, a lot of these guys move last minute, so we'll see what happens, and maybe it's a package deal with somebody else for Emmanuel Sanders. Let's get into Robbie Anderson. Another tricky name here. I think this is somebody that has not quite hit the stride that fantasy analysts and owners have expected yet. I think a lot of that had to do with the Jets being the Jets, Sam Darnold being hit and hurt and young, and also just the coaching there and Robbie Anderson's own injuries. So Robbie Anderson, 52 receptions, 779 yards, 5 touchdowns. He'll be 26 when the season gets started, and like the rest of the Jets' offense, Anderson was set up for failure when Adam Gase came over from Miami and Sam Darnold went down with mono. And to add insult to injury, their backup was Trevor Siemian, old Bronco, of course. He broke his leg. And the offense never really had an identity in 2019 when they were forced to feed Le'Veon Bell because they paid him way too much money. But that didn't work. So, and their offensive line was terrible. They were getting blown up, constantly stunting Le'Veon's patient running style, and that was definitely my concern in the preseason and my reason for telling people to fade Le'Veon Bell. But as for Robbie, he's a deep threat still in the league, similar to Deshaun Jackson in his prime, and Sam Darnold is definitely the real deal here in just 23 when the season starts himself, so he's still growing into his prime. It'd be best for Anderson and the Jets if he were to leave. So, as fantasy owners, cross your fingers that he does. The Raiders, among others, have shown interest already this offseason, so that might be a quick fix for them. He's been bogged down with the Jets for numerous reasons in his first 4 seasons, and he basically just needs a fresh start somewhere else with a new scheme, a new coach. I think new abilities there and just get out of there. So I definitely think he can surpass 1,000 receiving yards, and if he leaves the Jets, I think that happens this year. And just to name a few landing spots for Anderson's deep threat capabilities to play on the other side. So if he's not a number 1, I think he would be one of the best number 2s in the league. And I think he could play alongside and be a great contribution to Michael Thomas in New Orleans, of course, Christian Kirk in Arizona, Kenny Golladay with Detroit, T.Y. Hilton in Indianapolis, Julian Edelman in New England, and Terry McLaurin in Washington, as all of them could use a running mate. So I think he definitely leaves New York, and if it's not an immediate send over to the Raiders, who have already been in touch with him, I think he'll find a good landing spot. But I really hope he goes to one of these teams who already have a bona fide number 1, make a number 2. Both of them are going to rise, and that quarterback's going to flourish as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's gone. I just think for his sake, as much as I think the Jets have potential, the team has potential. Adam Gase does not. 2 completely different things. Terrible. I think Robbie Anderson – I don't want to say he knows he's good, but we definitely saw last year that he is a stud. He is a downfield stretcher. He is everything the Packers wanted MVS to be. So that's why he's going to go to the Packers, I hope, if they don't hit on one of the big A.J. Green. Actually, if they don't hit on A.J. Green, we'll say that, because I think the Packers are going to ultimately add someone at pick 29, I believe. I think like a guy like Justin Jefferson, or somehow if Rager falls that far, they're definitely going to get someone there. But I think Robbie Anderson will be a good like 8 mil, 9 mil spot throw, because I don't think he expects to be a wide receiver 1 just because of his skill set. He's tiny. He's not very good off the line, but he's just a downfield bomber, which is ultimately what they need, which is what the Raiders need. I'm shaking my table. They had Tyrell Williams, and he was spotty, but they got Hunter Renfrow under the center. They got Darren Waller in the middle. They just missing that one guy. However, I don't think he's that true wide receiver 1 like I mentioned, and that's kind of like what the Raiders are looking for. So I don't know their plan on if they're trying to get him and another guy kind of package. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know how high his value can go in fantasy. I don't want to, because I feel like it might go too high just based off the change in landing spots. I don't even know if I'll have much shares of him. I have a lot of dynasty shares just because he's kind of young. So I'm hoping Packers, but like I said, the Patriots could easily make a splash. Raiders have shown interest. I don't know. Like I think the Broncos could just because they needed a speedy receiver. Like there's a lot of teams that need a speedy receiver, but I think the Packers, especially last year after the whole MVS and Geronimo Allison ordeal, I think they are going to be front runners for him.
Yeah, I like it. And Washington even maybe too, which is kind of random. We don't talk about them a lot in fantasy, but, they're going to be chucking downfield, and Terry McLaurin's a beast, but he's not that burner guy. So,
No.
I was kind of thinking the Colts would be a good move. However, T.Y. is kind of already that guy. But, yeah, I think there's a lot of different landing spots for Robbie Anderson's skill set. So we'll see what happens. Ultimately, I think he just gets out of New York and starts fresh, and I think he'll be a good asset. I mean, he's a guy that the Niners could look at as well. For a deep burner too. So the Patriots also, if Tom or whoever can get the ball down the field that far, I think he'll be just fine. We did show at the end of last season. I mean, he was starting to hit his stride finally with Sam Darnold coming back healthy and him healthy too. So we'll see what happens with Robbie Anderson. I think he's a good fantasy asset. I agree with you. I think he'll get a little too excited when he changes positions, but I am going to be hesitant to draft him.
Yep.
Let's jump into our last name here for the YouTube channel. This is going to be the last name for the YouTube episode. We'll continue through for the podcast, so make sure you're tuning into our podcast wherever you listen to them. And also podcast folks, of course, tune over to YouTube as we just got started a few episodes ago again. And leave us a comment and subscribe and all that and let us know how we're doing so far. Last name here, this is a tricky one, man. Brashad Perryman. So there's two mindsets here. Either you're thinking – this guy's been terrible his whole career. He got a chance because the two of the best receivers in the league got hurt, and Jameis was throwing 5,000 yards, so he lucked out. That's how I feel. You could also be feeling that this guy just finally got an opportunity, showed what he can do with it, and he's going to get paid and go elsewhere. I don't necessarily feel that way. I've got a big, long bio, and for sake of time, I'm going to just shave it down to a bunch. I'm going to post this, of course, up on Instagram and whatnot, so you can read the whole bio if you want to get into it. But essentially – Brashad Perryman had 36 catches, 645 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He'll be 27 when the season starts. And he's a former first-rounder from UCF. He's only been in the league for 4 seasons, but he's played for 3 different teams. That's the Ravens, the Browns, and now the Buccaneers. After 3 underwhelming seasons with the Ravens and the Browns, everything broke right for Perryman in Tampa Bay. In the final 5 weeks, just 5 weeks in Tampa Bay, he absolutely got the chance of a lifetime, really, with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin both going down for the rest of 2019. And with Jamison Crowder, I was going to say. Jameis throwing a caution to the wind for 5,000 yards. He won fantasy leagues with the free agent pickup just before the fantasy playoffs. He racked up 32 targets, 11 receptions, 139 yards, and 1 touchdown from weeks 1 to 12. After that, though, he absolutely crushed for 37 targets, 25 receptions, 506 yards, and 5 touchdowns, including 3 consecutive 100-plus yard games to end the season. Brashad Perryman had the skill. We saw him do very well with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but nobody thinks he should be the number 3. He probably will be, depending on Humphreys and all that. But, when Evans and Godwin are right, they're definitely 1 and 2, and they are definitely the focus for Jameis Winston. Now, a couple things. I'll get your reply here, Lucas, in a second. A couple things. If Jameis leaves, this offense could be totally different. They could have somebody else. Someone else might have preference. We've seen Jameis hyper-target Godwin, hyper-target Evans. Those guys were out, so then it was Perryman. We'll see what happens. They might get a running back situation fixed up. Arians might change things, whatever. There's a lot of moving parts here. Another guy we're probably talking about too much because he may not be relevant. However, if he were to leave Tampa Bay, he might get another chance. If these guys go down again, you saw what could happen here. So maybe a deep round sleeper. Brashad Perryman, I think, has promise, but I'm trying not to get too into recency bias over the last month of the season.
I think wherever he goes, I don't think it's going to matter for fantasy. I don't know. It's going to be Robbie Anderson's going to be the first burner off the board. The next one, I'm just going to throw in some rookies because I think they are much better than Perriman. Henry Ruggs, KJ Hamler, T. Higgins even. There's just so many no one's going to go out there and miss on Robbie Anderson and be like, oh, crap, got to throw $8 million at Rashard Perriman. They're just going to go to the draft where there's 20 receivers that are NFL ready this year. I think ultimately the Bucs need to bring him back just for their sake as a football program. I think just having that third receiver with the talent he does, because he is talented, that it just – you don't have to worry about it. Like, if you have those guys locked up for 3 years, like, cool. You guys go build your chemistry. We're going to go work on our running back and our cornerback situation. Like you look at all the championship teams, like the Patriots, they have like 6 receivers that can all play, and they never have to worry about it. And I'm like, even if they're all mediocre, it doesn't matter. It just works. I could see the Packers, if they do go to the draft and I could see them getting him and then going and getting a big-name receiver, maybe like trading up to get one of like the Henry Ruggs guys or T. Higgins or something, or even if one falls. But ultimately, I think he should just be the Bucs' backup plan. Some Broncos rumors are popping up, and I wouldn't be opposed, but I don't want that to discount our finding of a wide receiver too in the draft. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's going to matter for fantasy purposes. Where he goes, I just can't see anything being – well, nothing's going to be as better as it was those 5 weeks at the end of the season last year, but I just don't see where he could sustain enough targets for the type of player he is to be a weekly guy.
If Perriman were to leave, where do you think he would fit?
Packers best fit, but I don't think they're going to – if they're going to go for a free agent burner, they're going to get Robbie. They're going to make it happen. Ultimately, I could see Eagles upgraded Nelson Aguilar, who's also a free agent. Colts could make sense. I don't know. There's some teams that would make sense, and I just don't think are going to do it, like the Bills, maybe the Ravens, like people like that. I don't think they would do it. So if I had to lay my hat on one team, I'd say Packers if no Anderson, or I'd go Eagles probably.
Cool. I like both of those as well. Well, that's going to do it for the YouTube channel. So YouTube folks, we'll catch you next time. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment. Let us know what you think about our free agent breakdowns, and make sure you tune on to the podcast as well, wherever you're listening, so that you can hear the rest of our breakdown.